Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, another Father's Day episode. This is the second part of my conversation with Mike and Andrew Aronstein. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Hugs the Scott Auctions, Topps, Panini, and Upper Deck. So thanks again, Mike and Andrew, and here it is.
One classic story about my 11-year-old self. Because I was walking to 180th Street in the Bronx into a candy store and paying a nickel a pack for 51 Bowman. But down the street was the wholesaler. So I went to the wholesaler and I asked if I could buy a box of 51 Bowman. And he said, "A kid like you, what?" He said, "Okay, 85 cents. 85 cents for a box of 51 Bowman. 24 packs. Can you imagine?"
Now, did you imagine that would have been a stupendous deal if it was an empty box?
Yeah, right. But I saved 35 cents.
Keep the cards. Yeah, I just want the box. They would think you're nuts.
And I would go back every time. Didn't they come out in series? I would go back and buy a box for 85 cents. We need a time machine.
So does it haunt you? Why didn't I buy two?
I didn't have, that would be $1.70. That was way too much money.
As a kid, you always told me about all the cards that you had collected, but then you had sold them in 84, and I was just becoming aware of the world around me. I don't know if you remember this, but in your office or den, you had a stack of T3 Turkey Reds. But the rest of your vintage collection, I never got to see, or at least I don't remember it.
And I seriously had everything. I had every Bowman set, every Gowdy set, every Top set.
I remember we would go to shows and there would be these great cards and you would tell me, "Oh, I had that, I had this, I had that." So the imagination inside my little brain was going on.
I still collect, but not baseball cards. I collect postcards of actors and actresses, starting in the 1880s.
How many do you have?
Into the 50s. I have many thousands of them.
I think it's really hard to collect what you used to have. It's better to move on to a different genre, I think. But I'm just struck you've made peace with a decision you made, which in hindsight, people would think would be crazy. You had almost everything, and there's people that it eats them up, that they sold too soon. And yet you have to go back in your time machine to that time, because 10 years before that, they would have been worth even a lot less.
We had 3 children. They all went to college. It all worked out more than terrific.
Yeah.
I've been retired for 20 years. I'm still going to every single Fuego game.
I have a theory about why you're so comfortable with letting the cards go. Because I feel like you, at some point, the card collecting took a backseat to the entrepreneurial side of your personality. And because you did so well in business.
That's true. I didn't have to really regret what I had done, because I did so well with TCMA and Photofile. Then with the post office, what I always say about being an entrepreneur, every year someone would come along and say, "I can use 10,000 of those." And it really turned out that way.
But you're also doing what you wanted to do. You weren't doing this because this is what you had to do. On some level, you had to do it because
to support my family.
Yes. But you also loved it. So you were successful at what you enjoyed doing.
What I do for the Fuego now, I shoot every player in the league and make them cards. And people say to me, "Why do you do that?" It's fun. I enjoy it. It's good. And every once in a while, a player will walk over and shake my hand and say, "Thank you."
Do they know you're a legend?
No. You just know I'm crazy postcard guy.
Oh, gosh, and so much more.
And I make collages for the parents with their son on it and a bunch of pictures. To me, it's just fun.
Have you all ever done a show together?
Yeah, we have.
We've traveled to shows like in Pittsburgh.
In terms of setting up at a show?
The match shows we do together.
Yeah, there's a group of super fans that host Mets Fan Fest every year in Queens. and we have a table there. And we sell leftover photo file stock, like whatever Met stuff I have. It's just for fun. We're not making any money. We're just getting rid of stuff, really. But we also would set up in Cooperstown because my dad was part owner of Baseball Nostalgia. At one point within the last decade, for 6 or 8 years in a row, we would set up a table outside and sell. And that was a good time. We've traveled to the National together. Remember in 2018, we went to the National in Cleveland. Didn't we drive from Cooperstown?
We had a store in Cooperstown for 45 years.
Did you normally partner with guys? I'm just wondering, because I was not a partnership guy as much, but you picked normally, sound like good partners, at least for some period of time.
I ended up working for my biggest customer, who were two partners. This is telling the story. They sold the business and they took the check and they waved it in my face. And they said, "We got $3 million. You got nothing."
Oh, please.
Nice guys.
Gee.
And I said, "Can I have the baseball photos?" And they said, "Sure, take them."
There you go.
And a week later, seriously, I was selling 5,000 photos a week.
When you say that,
photos are,
Commodity.
what they would make is collector's kits, stamps and coins, middle rocks.
Yeah.
And started making baseball card kits. And that's what I was doing for them.
and now that causes so much confusion in the hobby. I can't even tell you how many people contact me saying, I have this TCMA card. It has this weird border. I don't know what it is, because it was a card for the collector's kit.
Hits.
Yeah.
It was Collectors Marketing Corp. When you look back, it's amazing how these things happened. And Andrew, who was the guy on TV and Russell called him and he started buying 10,000 envelopes? He's a famous guy.
Jim, you'll enjoy this. Ken Golden.
Kenny Golden was your guy? You're kidding.
Ken Golden.
He had an angle on it, I'm sure.
My partner called him and said, we're making envelopes every time Mark McGwire hits a home run and it's canceled in the town. And he said, every time he does it, I'll take 10,000. And do you know how to put stamps on 10,000 envelopes? I went, duh.
You had to lick them in those days, I think. They weren't the, like, if you
My wife were sticking the envelope. They were sticking the stamps on. Well, we were doing like 200, that 10,000. And I called the biggest mail order company in New York. And I said, I have a problem. I want to stick 10,000 stamps on envelopes. And the guy said, our smallest order is 1 million. But I have a friend who could do it for you. His friend told me to bring him rolls of 3,000 stamps. And they have machines that would put the stamps on. Then he took me to a guy who made envelopes. That's all they did was make envelopes in this 100,000 square foot warehouse full of envelopes. It was staggering. Again, I said, we're doing baseball and 10,000. He said, it's small for us. He said, I love baseball. I'll do it for you. Amazing. And we became his biggest customer.
it just shows people think these niche businesses are just small niches, but they can be big niches.
Oh boy, it's so amazing how it can explode. And once a year, someone would say, would you be making some kind of weird thing? And they'd say, oh, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'll take 10,000 of those. Great.
I wanted to bring it back to something, Jim, that you had said earlier about collecting things that you had already collected. I love T206s. The issue I have is that my father finished the T206 set in 1972, including the 3 big cards. I know there's a 4th one
now, but that wasn't discovered then.
So by 72, he had already completed the set. So it's like a weird thing. Do I want to try to collect the T206 set? I feel it's almost like I wouldn't live up to that. I'll never have those 4 cards.
You could buy 300 of them for 20 cents each.
I would do that.
Back in the day, I know.
And Lou Lipset was rejecting them at 20 cents each. He had so many, he couldn't handle it anymore.
That must have been fun. Now, the prices for those cards, even in 4, I think the way to collect that set now is to buy large lots of them through auction sites when they become available. A lot of times when they do, they're in poor condition.
It's just gotten prohibitive for most people to collect like we used to collect back in the day,
Right.
trying to want everything. What you had, Mike, would be not just prohibitive financially for 99.99% of the people. It would also be the time, the ability to find all those things. You don't find complete sets as much now. You got to piece them together. A lot of these cards are in the auctions. It's progress in one sense, but I lament the good old days when you knew where all the good cards were and you could make some deals and the cards were more important than the cash.
That's why I've gone to movie star postcards. I buy them from the early 20th century for $1.
Yeah, and they're available.
Then I Googled the people who were on the cards, and the stories are amazing. But it's fun. It's not investing. It's collecting.
In the old days, there was some degree of everybody wanted the same stuff, but they had their emphases. And most people weren't doing football or basketball or hockey unless they were really into it. It was mainly a baseball centric, the older, the better kind of a thing.
I wanted to put the whole set together.
And you wanted a set.
Matter really who the player was. If you needed,
it didn't matter that much.
Yeah.
If you said, hey, I'll take all your Hall of Famers, that just wouldn't have been sporting. It would have sounded like you're trying to take advantage of me. That is not in the true spirit of collecting the complete set.
Right, exactly.
You said, hey, the last card I need is Mickey Mantle. I've got all the others. Now, they wouldn't call your bluff on it, but if that truly was the case, they'd say, sure, I'd like to help out a fellow collector.
20 cents.
It'd be 40 cents.
I understand. I have a question for my dad. We're talking about collecting complete sets. And you might have known guys that had the cards that you needed. But if you go to a show and there's the card that you need, but it's not in the condition you're comfortable with, would you buy it anyway?
If it was cheap enough, I would call it a placeholder until I got a better one.
Because I think our perspective on collecting now is so different, because I guess it depends on the cards and how rare the cards are.
But it's shifted way more. Now, in the old days, it was more, I want the card. And now it's about the grade. It's always about the price a little bit. You didn't want to be gouged. But if it's a reasonable price and a reasonable condition, I bought cards that I was so proud of when I got them in 1974, and I'm sure I paid $1 for them. They're worth $1,000 now.
Yep.
But somebody's telling me, hey, that's a 4. And I'm thinking, it looked like an 8 to me. It was the nicest one I ever saw.
Now with eBay and the internet, you can hold out for the perfect card. You can go on eBay and there'll be 20 examples of the same card, and you can pick the one.
I want cards where there aren't 20 of them for sale.
My question for you is, where were you sourcing your cards from?
I did buying trips. I put ads in the paper wherever I was, lived, where I was in the Army. I was just putting ads in and buying collections. This is early 70s.
How about before that? Like when you were a kid, where were your cards?
As a kid, I didn't have as many cards as I wanted as a kid. I bought them at the store. I didn't get any 85-cent deal like your dad did. I don't remember ever buying a box of cards. I remember buying a pack or two at a time and trading gum for additional cards, throwing away the wrappers.
I would stand outside a candy store, and when the kids would walk out with their cards, I would say, want to trade? It was junior high school.
Mike, ahead of your time, did not do that.
What was the first set you collected as a kid? Like really tried to finish?
Probably 59 tops. I got close on that. I did finish 60 and 61. And 58, I had some. 56 was the first card I bought as a little kid. 57's just had a few. 58, got into it in the last series. 59 was strong. But see, we were moving. We moved every year. So I was in a different neighborhood with a different set of buddies each year. And that gave me the breadth of understanding, hey, everybody likes cards. It was a door opener. You move in the new neighborhood. And of course, nobody cared about the previous year's cards. These are old cards. Hey, what new ones do you have? I just didn't even bring them out. If you were doing a flipping game and you pulled out the previous year's cards, I said, no, we're flipping for the current year cards. Almost all baseball, a little bit of football in season.
I started collecting strip cards in 1947. I was 7 years old. I think they were a penny. You get 10 cards for a candy store hanging on the wall. In the Bronx, the guy would be Melot. You'd come back next week and it would be Carl Hubble. The same picture.
Yeah, so much for great art. Yeah. Yeah, we had that stuff in the old days. Now it's very competitive.
I met Willie Mays. He was signing autographs for free at a TV store. And he signed my photo, Say Hey. I still have it.
Keep it. Yeah.
And my favorite player was Don Mueller. He would hit the dying quails. I think he led the league in hits like twice and over 200 hits.
Nowadays, he wouldn't get a look because he didn't have a good launch angle and exit velocity.
I never thought of collecting as investing. I've always thought just like completing the set. Even now, when I'm ancient, collect the exact same way and just enjoy it. And it's fun. And it's
road less traveled now. But that's a good way to do it. You can't be disappointed if you're collecting for enjoyment and you're not paying huge bucks for things.
That's the confusion I have with the modern hobby. People are paying all this money for cards that I'm not sure anyone's going to understand what they're looking at in 10 years.
The man in the house of cards.